Is there any instrument left someone hasn't played the Game of Thrones theme on yet?
Well, we're the flaming bagpipes on a unicycle. That's the only. Oh wait, no. We're good with the confused Daenerys in the middle.
She's like, why am I even here? What did you need me for?
Where are my dragons indeed?
I think it's just this. I think we should start the show. Oh, no, there's the flames. There we go. All right, go, 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 go!
Bienvenidos a Cordkillers! Nuestra misión to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so my friends, have the information you need to be able to watch what you want, when you want, where you want, on whatever device you want. I'm Tom Merritt. Who are you?
Hey, man, I'm Brian Brushwood, but more importantly, I'm joined live in studio by oneofus.net's Chris Cox. Is it .net?
It's me, it's .net, because .com was taken by a dating site that hasn't been up since we started.
So there's none of us
Coming
at
soon.
oneofus.com. Yeah, Chris Cox has been a friend of mine. He's first time I saw you was as the bartender at the hangout spot after The Real Deal with Corey Coleman and Martin Thomas and C. Robert Cargill.
I was the guy who was always like, when Martin was like, well, I got to go home. And I was like, don't be a pussy. Have another shot with me.
Well, and so nowadays you're writing for One of Us. What else are you up to?
Well, not writing, podcasting. It's a podcast network.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I managed to get away from the writing journalism
See,
stuff.
now you just spew stuff out, and out it goes.
Man, that point where you had to sit down and go, you got to write 500 words about like the Emoji Movie coming out. And you're like, my soul is dead already, so what difference does it make? You know?
You're like, I'm going to write 500 emojis about how I felt.
Because everybody did
that has to have been done, right? Somebody's done an emoji review of the Emoji Movie.
Many times.
Had to have been, yeah.
Many times.
Let's kick
so
off the show with our 500-word review of the Emoji movie in primary target. Yes. Every so often on this show and our previous incarnation, Brian and I like to check in and just see how the cable companies are doing, because since 1995, they've been telling us everything's fine. Our numbers aren't going down, but the 5 largest U.S. pay TV providers lost a collective 527,000 subscribers in Q2. Comcast lost 34,000. AT&T lost 351,000. They don't count DirecTV Now. DirecTV Now actually added 152,000. Charter lost 90,000. Verizon lost 15,000. Altice USA lost 37,000. That's Cablevision, etc. Comcast made money, but they made money off their filmed entertainment revenue. That rose 59.6%, largely because of Fate of the Furious. Theme park revenue increased 15.6%. But internet revenue is going up for them. It's only cable TV subscriptions that are really stinking for Comcast right now. And they are talking already about their internet-only Xfinity Instant TV service launching later this year. They're kind of going back and forth on how much it's going to cost, but it will only be available in markets that have Comcast internet. So, Brian, they've gone from saying the numbers aren't that bad. They'll go back out. It's the housing market to, hey, look at our skinny bundle that we can sell you.
Well, so number one, I'm going to say that this is kind of the dog whistle that says, yeah, the war's over. We all know we can finally begin to admit what everybody has seen for the last 20 years, that our shareholders are finally prepared for, is that, yes, cable TV, the way you've known it, is going away. This has been one of our ongoing things that's driven us nuts, Chris, is the constant, every 6 months you get one report saying all the numbers are down, everybody's cutting the cord, to counterintuitive numbers like, well, but revenues are up because we raised our prices, or because we scored this exclusive deal or whatever.
They're artificially inflating the numbers in order to not have to create an entire new format and try and, this was successful for so long, and now it's not, and we don't understand. It's very typical of executives who deal with entertainment marketing. They just don't have their finger on the pulse of what people actually want until 20 years after the fact, when it's already a done deal.
And I would actually counter that by saying they do have their finger on the pulse on the thing that matters most to them, which is how to calm down their investors, how to calm down the shareholders, how to keep the board happy. What are the lies? What are the lines that we need to tell now in order to keep everything afloat? But
how do they slow down that decline to buy time, right?
Yeah, and it's been my theory for a very long time that every time they've been saying everything's fine, they've known it's not fine.
Sure.
What they are looking to do is buy a little more time to make an adjustment. Here's my question to you: is do you think that they're in a position, given the fact that they're already hyping their over-the-top skinny bundle, internet-only cable service? Is it time? Have they bought enough time? Have they pulled this off?
I think this is only the first of these type things we're going to see. Quite frankly, I think everybody's going to have a version of this. I think I've been saying for a while now, there's so many different streaming companies out there offering their own products. And eventually we're going to see in the next few years them shutting down, collapsing into single entities until we probably have like 4 or 5, right? And then it's going to be about these major companies offering their own little set-top versions. But is that enough to compete with Roku and things like that are already doing this?
Wait a minute. Okay, so there's one thing that I really liked. You were saying that the idea that we'd have a balkanization, all these independent stuff, and then we would have a consolidation into a few major services, which is something I don't think we've talked too much about, Tom, but I think Chris is right.
Well, we're already seeing it, right? Yeah. Charter is Time Warner Cable and Charter, and now they offer it as Spectrum. Altice is Cablevision and Altice and a couple others. So that consolidation is underway for sure. I think the question is DirecTV and Dish, well, DirecTV being AT&T now, both immediately got on this bandwagon, right? Dish was the first with Sling TV, and DirecTV with DirecTV Now. They're saying, look, we compete on a nationwide basis already, a satellite. We're ready for that mindset. Let's do this. Charter, Comcast, Altice, they don't compete on a nationwide basis. And so you notice when they roll out their skinny bundles, they're keeping them very conservatively in their markets, tied to their internet providership. The first one that breaks out of that mode is the first one that has a chance to survive. But as long as they're continuing to cling to that sinking ship, I think they have trouble.
And the old system of having bundles that that people are like, well, I don't need QVC or I don't need sports or whatever. For the longest time, cable, I think, was still really salable because of sports. But now ESPN's got their own streaming thing out there. You can just order that bundle package all by itself without the need for cable whatsoever.
And we've definitely talked about in the past, there was a time when ESPN was, intentionally blind to the phenomenon of cord cutting. But the moment, and plus keep in mind, what was that number, Tom? Can you remember what was the average subsidy on a yearly basis that non-sports viewers?
Like $6 per subscriber, roughly, something around there.
Per month, right? Like $6 per month. So it was like $50 a year. Non-sports people were paying to keep sports people swimming in sports. But you're right. The fact that ESPN is the first to kind of or has finally defected. The fact that you have at this point, is there any major cable provider that doesn't have their skinny bundle queued up and ready to go?
At least in development, no. I think they've all got a version of it out there. Some of them, I mean, Comcast is yet to launch, and it's the most pervasive of all of them, and it's still only in their market. So we won't see all of these survive, but you've got the satellite providers who already know how to do nationwide. You've got Hulu, who knows how to do streaming video, and YouTube, which with Google knows how to do streaming video really well. And you got Sony, which has deep entertainment pockets behind it. It's tough competition for them to get into once this becomes the norm. Granted, most people still have cable in the United States. We get that. But they are indicating they understand that the tide is now going out and they need to build a boat. But they only want their boat to float in their lake, and they need to have it float on the whole ocean.
Well, okay, so keep in mind, I think what you're describing.
Keep in mind, my metaphors suck, but also.
I would say, let me suggest that I think your metaphor is onto something, but it is awfully familiar, the song that's being sung. Is this just a rolled back version of the sell this line until the investors are ready for us to make the leap entirely to virtual?
I think it is. I think the problem is they don't understand how to compete. Right. So I'm with you up to now. They've just been like, look, let's buy time. People still are buying cable. Let's buy time. The fact that they're now telling their investors, hey, but we've got these skinny bundles, we're ready for the future, is good. They're managing their investor expectations just fine. I wonder if they're ready to compete with 5 other nationwide competitors when they've basically had a monopoly in all of their markets up until now.
And when more and more of this stuff is available, and part of the problem is just consumer awareness. I think a lot of people even the ESPN thing we're talking about, a lot of people just don't know it's an option out there. I think what we're heading towards is the gradual destruction of the old television setup altogether, of networks and separate cable channels, and more of these aggregate streamings, more like the Hulu model, where it's like, okay, we're selling our stuff to a couple of these, and the people who are going to win these skinny channel things are the ones who say, okay, for those of you who are like, want more than just to pay for Netflix and Hulu at home, but I want a bunch more options, you're ordering a bundle of like 9 of these together, these different giant streaming aggregate groups, for a discounted rate for all of them.
Well, and that, of course, is the strange counterintuitive part. In the beginning, when we first started doing versions of the show, we were talking about how much we hated the one-size-fits-all solution, that we didn't want a buffet, we just wanted a la carte. But then we figured out, oh, wait, if you bought everything a la carte, it's going to end up costing as much as a buffet. Why not give us a buffet? But now the buffet is to be honest, I got to be honest, like if all of these skinny bundles were as good as my experience with PlayStation Vue has been over the last couple of months, I think consumers will be more than happy to pay. What is it? They just raised it. It was $39.
Yeah, I think it's $40 for their base one now.
Yeah.
Plus,
but Sling TV's there for $20 a month, right? And that's the ESPN option, right? That's the one that just gets you ESPN and a bunch of other channels.
Plus, we want watch anything at any time without having to remember to program it into our TiVo now.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that makes me happiest. Now that I've had a little bit of time to play with the PlayStation Vue, absolutely love. Like, there was a brief moment I got old man confused. I'm like, oh, I just wanted to record Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty's coming back. What do I do? And then I see this icon that's just a television with a plus in the middle, and I was like, I bet that icon means add to my favorites list. And I clicked it, and I'm like, oh, it works. And they're like, yeah, we'll have all the Rick and Mortys for you. Don't worry about it.
You're fine. Just sit back, Grandpa. It's gonna be okay.
Exactly. And it's like I got to be an old man. It got to treat me like an old man, and I was a happy old man. And then I took a nap.
Brian has passed the old man test, or PlayStation Vue has, one of the two.
Someone get him his Ovaltine.
All right, folks. Real quickly, want to remind you of the Spoiler in Time project, our sister show where Brian and I talk about the shows that we were able to get our machines to record and we watched. And we got this huge library of us talking about these shows, and people are like, I'm finally catching up on The Shield. I'm finally watching, Preacher. I'm finally, in season 4 or 5 of Game of Thrones. I want to go back to your Spoiler in Times. So the Spoiler in Time project is set to take all of those episodes and break them up by show so they're easy to access.
Yeah, and the way we're going to make it happen is by hitting one of our goals at patreon.com/Cordkillers. Cordkillers, of course, is a completely independently funded project. You'll notice that we don't do ads except for our own stuff, in which case, if you have a problem with that, why don't you punch yourself in the eyeball? Patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Now please give us money.
is where you can donate to the show and join the 1,718 other awesome, fine individuals that keep us loud, live, and independent.
Brian's like, give us money or I'm going to use the Genesis voice on you. Punch yourself in the eyeball.
And then give us $1.
So what's our next target that we're aiming for, Bryce?
1850. We're 132 people away.
Oh, we can do this, people. If you've been listening for years, if you get value out of our program, heck, maybe we even saved you a few dollars. Why don't you throw us some of those shekels? You'll never notice it, and it'll mean the world to us.
Patreon.com/Cordkillers. And if you do that, we'll tell you how to watch.
Spoiler, we'll tell you anyway.
Yeah, we probably will. Roku pulls ahead of Google, Chromecast, and Apple TV, according to numbers from eMarketer. They estimate the number of people using these devices at least once in July and came up with 39 million for Roku. That's 23% of the market. Chromecast fell to number 2, Brian, 37 million. That's 22%. Fire TV's right behind at 36 million. And then a distant fourth is Apple TV at 21 million.
I don't want to take anything away from Roku's victory here. I think Roku's done a fantastic job of marketing the idea of non-conventional video viewing, cord-cutting experience to an older generation. We've talked a lot about my in-laws who used the Roku, as they call it.
And they got the real inexpensive versions now, so you don't have to buy the high-end one with 4K. You can buy a cheaper one that's almost the same price as a Chromecast.
Correct. But if you turned the screws on my thumbs and tortured me and made me pick one reason that this is true.
Is this part of the show? Because I'm excited to be here.
That's the only reason Chris came.
I think it is quite simply Roku has been better about integrating their platform into new televisions than anyone else.
It's so simple, too, the Roku. It's just so straightforward, I mean, I think people really responded to that, the simplicity of the name, but ultimately for people who are looking around, the Apple TV, which started so strong in the lead of everybody with being the first entry into this, it's what's killing them is the way their whole market changed towards being like, no, we always do things Apple's way. We want to make things so you can only do things Apple way. And yet, where are they with original creative programming?
Planet of the Apps.
Yeah, and they've been talking about it for like 3 years. It's like where you put a bunch of money in and we got nothing, and so nobody cares about your product anymore. These other things are easier to use, they're cheaper, and they have access to more things.
Yeah, I'm going to say that Roku, most people, if this metric is how many people are using these various platforms, Roku, by virtue of coming free in so many different televisions, makes it very, very attractive to people who otherwise don't consider themselves cord cutters. They're like, oh, this is the Netflix part of my television, and not even knowing that it's a Roku.
I think that's absolutely true. The threat to Roku is that Apple's been throwing out around their weight on the development side. So up until now, I've always said Roku is the best because even though they have a store, they have a deal with Fandango now to sell stuff, they don't limit stores. They're like, sure, we've got a store, fine, but you can also add Vudu, you can add Amazon, whatever you want. We don't care. Apple TV limits you. They say, sure, you can have other streaming services, but only the iTunes store. Fire TV does the same thing. Amazon says other streaming services great, but only the Amazon store. So, there's some exceptions to that. You can get Google Play to work on iOS, for instance, but you can't get to the store from it because Google doesn't want to give them a 30% cut. So there's all this weirdness on these other platforms where Roku's just like, if you can make the app for our platform, make it and go for it. The problem is the Roku platform is a little dated. And so a lot of developers are getting wooed by Apple to make their apps for Apple TV first. I've seen this a couple of times now. DirecTV Now was one of them. Hulu's new version of Hulu Live TV is another, where they went to Apple TV because it had better interface tools. Roku is actually going to be shutting down their system for a couple hours in the morning in a few weeks. You can go to Roku.com if you want to check on the details of it. You'll still be able to use your Roku. You just won't be able to add channels for a couple hours because they're rebuilding the platform from the ground up. And I'm hoping that means they're going to have much better interface tools for app developers so they can regain some of that momentum.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so too, but it's really weird to wish for the underdog when they're number one.
Yeah, right.
They're winning.
I mean, this was a surprising stat for me because I feel like they're cresting just a little faster, and they're going to fall back if they don't do something else.
Well, Roku is like, the guy doesn't own everything else in the world. So you're like, you go, guy, you're on top for now.
Yeah.
But then the beginning of the next movie, they fall down and they got to work their way back up again.
And I wonder how much of it is the fact that Roku just wants to be the dumb pipes. That's a very unsexy selling position to be the guy who provides dumb pipes. But Roku has done a fantastic job of saying like, hey man, we're just the gateway to a new world of
a lot of people don't need more than that. They're just like, like my mom is like, I just want something simple I can access this stuff with.
To be honest, I'm going to go so far as to say if you're talking about the living room television, I can think of virtually nobody who needs more than that.
Yeah.
And if you want more than that, then that's because you're not the conventional watch television kind of person.
I suspect Amazon is the 800-pound gorilla to watch here, though. They are developing and changing stuff really fast, and their original programming department is about to have a lot more interesting and
they're already tearing
stuff.
it up. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, and we've talked about this before, you tend to stick to the ecosystem that you develop in. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, just more of the content that I've purchased over the years has been in the Amazon system. So I like staying in that system and finding, not rebuying the same old stuff.
And all the other, because they're packaging their thing. It's not just about the TV. It's about all these other world things that you get with it. And I'm like, wow, that's great. I get my Kindle books.
But on the flip side, Roku proves less less can be more.
Yeah, very
like
true.
it's that's all it does.
I think,
And the smartest thing is putting it in the TVs, like you said, Brian,
Yeah.
because the other day we'd gone out of town for a few days. And so when we came back and turned on the TV, it actually booted instead of just coming out of sleep. And I saw WebOS come across the
Wow.
television. And I'm like, oh, right, I forgot. My television actually runs on Palm. That's kind of crazy. But I never think about it because even when I use the apps that are on the television, I just see, like you said, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, etc.
Yep.
Yeah. You always get a Raspberry Pi and just do whatever you want.
No, nobody will do that. Nobody does that. That's a myth. That's a lie.
That's delicious. Let's move on to what to watch in our Under Surveillance segment. Whole reason we deal with all those platforms is to be able to watch stuff. Hulu has struck a deal with Warner Brothers Domestic TV to become the exclusive home of Full House. Take that, Netflix.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
I gotta go.
Family Matters, Step by Step, Perfect Strangers, and Hangin' with Mr. Cooper. It's basically the TGIF lineup from the ABC of the 90s. It's all coming to Hulu September 29th.
Okay.
I thought they were also getting a lot of animation stuff as well.
They
like a
are.
big
They're getting a lot of
package.
stuff from a lot of different
Like
quarters. for sure.
Futurama and all that stuff
Yep.
on there, right?
Yeah, they got a bunch of Fox stuff too.
I'm sure they are. And I know my brother is the kind of person that has a job where he has to do meticulous animation on one screen, but he can have noise on another screen. And so Jay will do 6, 7, 8, 9 laps around The Simpsons. Just start it one after another, after another, and after another. Me not being that guy, it is so weird to read this like just loosely translated. When I read this, I in my mind I think old crap goes to Hulu, and I really want to hear from people who are super excited about this news and specifically why. So please write us at cordkillers@gmail.com.
Isn't that just part of the added package for, 35-year-old somethings who are like, oh, I loved those shows when I was a kid, and that's that much more of a
I guess
motivation to
I
choose
guess
Hulu.
I reject your thesis. I don't know that anybody loved any of these shows.
I
could be
didn't.
wrong.
Well,
Okay.
come on, Perfect Strangers. That wasn't so bad.
It's
Balky, you love Balky.
yes. No, I liked it better when the other guy showed up on The Leftovers. That
Yeah.
was amazing.
Me too.
Cordkillers@gmail.com. Fans of Full House, Perfect Strangers, and Hanging with
Let it
Mr.
happen.
Cooper.
You'll find a straw Brian waiting for you and a
Please.
couple of blades to stab him
Open
with.
straw arms. No, I think the most interesting thing to me about this, of course, this was my take, was like Netflix spent a bunch of money to reboot Full House with Fuller House and just lost the back catalog to Hulu. And Hulu's making a big move, like you mentioned, Chris, just getting as much back catalog as possible to become that place where, like, if you want to watch an old TV show, we have it.
I'm sucker for some of that. Like right now, I'm watching Deep Space Nine, and I'm like, where else was I going to do this? I have my Netflix. So I'm like, yeah, that's the number one. Like, what am I going to watch? More Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And I'm happy it's there. For other people, it's Full House. Those people probably should, make their peace and die. But
Move on.
Those people are perfect strangers to Brian. They're hanging with Mr. Chris Cox.
yeah, just go through it step by step, figure it out. Are we going to name all the shows from that story?
No, I think it's time to talk about Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart performed his first stand-up comedy special in more than 20 years for HBO on July 26th. Why? Because he hasn't made any other content for HBO that he's contracted to do, is my guess. His first special, actually, since 1996. He hasn't done stand-up since then.
I was madly in love with that original special. I must have watched it 20 times. So funny.
Wow. I've never seen it. But what's funny is I assume, Tom, that this was just the result of he finally had time, and sometimes you pursue a passion project that you hadn't had time to make happen before. But the idea that this is a way for him to fulfill his obligations for the HBO the contract with the animated stuff that he was talking about, that
which is
had
now,
never
I guess,
even occurred to me.
I guess that's not happening now, it sounds like.
Yeah, it turns out animating a daily content show a little bit resource intensive.
Yeah.
it turns
Yeah, they
out.
couldn't turn it around. Too much tweening or something is what I heard. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that Jon Stewart did it unwillingly. It was probably like, we can't make the turnaround time work for a daily animated news show. So what if I do a stand? I haven't done a stand-up special in 20 years. Why don't I do that for you guys? Sure.
They should have just put the little mocap balls on them and put them in a thing, because then it looks animated.
Animated stand-up special.
Yeah, there you
Could
go.
happen.
AMC announced another Ted Chiang story. Ted Chiang's story was the basis for the movie Arrival. Now, a different story from that same collection of short stories called Liking What You See is being developed by Eric Heiserer, who was the screenwriter on Arrival. The story is about people who undergo surgery to prevent them from perceiving beauty.
Oh, wow.
It's a great story. Go read the short story. Reading the story of your life did not ruin Arrival for me, and I don't think this will do anything to your perception of this AMC series, but it is a fascinating concept.
Can you explain to me? Because when I hear that, I just go, why would anybody want to do that?
Oh, no. Because if you don't see beauty, you don't prejudge people based on surface level stuff.
But,
Instead,
but can you still go to an art gallery and go, oh my God, I love this Picasso?
I don't know.
I
assume
what?
only
I
one
think
of
he
us
deals
has
with
read
that in the story, and I don't remember how now. But the basic idea was if we don't perceive beauty in others, we judge people based on their actions and who they are, not how they look. And we also feel better about ourselves. That was another part of the short story, was the person who opted not to get the surgery started feeling bad about themselves because of the way they looked.
Yeah. No, this is wonderful. I love everything about this.
I think we'd all be very fat.
The motion carries. Yeah.
Netflix
You
has
better
ordered
believe
20
I'm going to get
episodes.
so fat.
Yeah.
Netflix has ordered 20 episodes of a new show from Matt Groening called Disenchantment. It's about a crumbling medieval kingdom. My take on it from the description is it's Futurama for fantasy instead of sci-fi.
It will be animated then?
Yeah.
Okay. Right on. In.
I totally
I mean, it's Matt
am.
Groening, yeah, so it's definitely animated.
Yeah, what's not to like, right? You like Futurama was great. The Simpsons, I mean, they're still great. They're just kind of like I say with all comedy. After 6 or 7 seasons of watching any given comedy thing, you're like, it's not that it's not funny. I'm just tired of it. You know?
Yeah, or not even that you're tired of it. It's just that it becomes predictable. Like it becomes familiar. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Wonder Woman 2 has a release date, even though it hasn't even begun production yet. Gal Gadot will be returning on December 13th, 2019. They haven't even got Patty signed up to be the director yet.
What's interesting is that Patty has actually been actively writing the script for this movie with, I want to say, Jeff Johns for several weeks now and still won't commit to directing the film. I assume she's holding out for a much bigger payday, but I also know she's in talks to be part of a new brain trust for the DC films that will also be involve Matt Reeves and, of course, Jeff Johns and what have you, without Zack Snyder or Deborah Snyder, who are now pulling back to just be executive producer level, but not directly involved.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that stuff like this would happen out of order. Like, If I'm somebody who owns this franchise and if I'm somebody who sees the success, because keep in mind, Wonder Woman just surpassed Guardians of the Galaxy 2 to be the most profitable movie of the entire summer domestically in the U.S. Like, it makes sense for you to, number one, loudly commit to a date so that you kind of pee on your spot so that nobody else will take it. And then, and basically they're saying, come hell or high water, it's going to come out around this time. We're going to do our best to get that lady to direct that lady. I'm sure that's what they called her in the press release.
She prefers to be called that lady.
That lady. We're getting Han Solo moved to May, supposedly. Does this mean that Star Wars Episode 9 will come out in May? Or is it going to go up against Wonder Woman 2?
Very good question.
I
see it less likely that Star Wars will move its date than Wonder Woman would.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's going to be
agree.
a Titanic December then.
Speaking of which, quick side jag, there was a great article on crack.com that proposed some of the stories that you hear behind the scenes about the Han Solo movie is that, number one, the guy doesn't look much like Han Solo, considering the fact that this story takes place, literally 3 to 5 years before A New Hope, and he looks totally different. The word on the set is that his acting portrayal of Han Solo is very Ace Ventura-like. And the question is, and now they're bringing in Ron Howard to fix all of this. And the Cracked article, like, you could tell that this is clearly somebody loves this idea and was very impassioned as they said, look, you want to fix all of this? Keep everything the way it is. Just set it as a movie within the Star Wars universe, by which they mean holographic presentations are a
It's a
known
HoloNet
thing.
movie.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And it's known, obviously, like Rey has heard the legends of the Force and of Luke Skywalker and all this stuff. So have the movie begin with Chewie and Rey and Luke Skywalker sitting down like, oh my God, here's another Han Solo movie. I guess we'll watch it.
Right.
And then it could be as cheesy and silly and goofy and over the top as
No,
possible.
don't even
and it doesn't matter. Because
Don't even start with that. End with like it pulls back and you see they're all sitting there like, what the hell was that? And Harrison Ford walks in and goes, oh, are you watching that crap? Turn that off.
Regardless, sorry, that was a big side jag, but I thought that was a great idea.
That's my theory on the prequels, right?
What's
I've
that?
mentioned that before. The prequels are just HoloNet movies about what actually happened in that time period.
I will accept that as canon.
Yeah, I would gladly accept that.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about what we're actually watching these days, where we just discussed some of the shows we've been looking at. Of course, Brian and I watching Firefly and Preacher for Spoiler in Time. Also Game of Thrones, obviously. And new Rick and Morty came out, Brian.
I can't believe I didn't know that last night was the premiere of Rick and Morty. I'm ashamed that it took you writing me to remind me to set that up and to watch it. Yeah, it was great. It was great. I enjoyed it. What else can you say about it? It's Rick and Morty.
Well, it was Rick and Morty came up because you were telling me how great Ozark is.
Yeah.
But,
Look, have you guys watched
the Jason
Ozark?
Bateman Breaking Bad?
Yeah, it's pretty
Bateman
great.
Bad.
Is it?
It's the last time I felt
like
this way.
that. Bateman Bad.
Bateman Bad. But okay, I'm gonna be coy on details because you still have yet to watch it, right, Tom?
That is correct.
Okay, I have not felt this way about a show since The Shield. Breaking Bad got close, but didn't quite get me all the way there.
Those are strong words, man.
Yeah, and I do not say them lightly. The Shield is a story of a man who has a superpower, the magical ability to say the exact right words in every situation to cover his ass and survive just a bit longer. And all throughout the Shield, you're watching this trap slowly close around him, and you're very, very tense by the end to wonder how it begins.
It's one of the greatest shows ever made, no question.
Correct. Ozark had me feeling that by the end of the first episode. And unlike Vic Mackey, who is damned from the very first episode, you're like, well, he's going down eventually. I just wonder when. This Jason Bateman remains utterly sympathetic the entire way through, as best I could tell. And yes, he's
Have you
got
watched
flaws.
the whole thing? so far?
I'm 4 episodes in.
Okay,
Have you watched the whole thing yet?
No, I haven't watched any of it yet.
Oh, it's
but
so
I just
good.
watched the trailers and read about it. But it begs the question: if they're doing that, this character who clearly is not going to remain completely sympathetic, what is going to be that jumping off point when we go as an audience?
No.
I don't know if I'm rooting for you anymore. Not the way we were with Walter White. You know?
I don't know. It will not be. It's not Breaking Bad, and if anything, it's an inverse of The Shield. Every character around him is failing him, and he is you know what? Save it. I'm saving all of this. Everybody watch Ozark. It's. I'm probably gonna watch the next 4 episodes tonight.
We talk about that later.
There's a good chance.
Okay. This is not going to affect my enjoyment of Ozark when I watch it, but I have to know, do they have any allusions to Walnut Bowls or the Precious Moments Museum or Hummels, which are all huge in the Ozarks?
Not yet.
Isn't
Okay.
moonshine and like mountain people also big there?
No. See, you've never been to the Ozarks.
There's enough there that makes me believe they've done their homework on the Ozarks.
That's what I'm wondering. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I'll still enjoy it if it's not. But having spent a large portion of my childhood vacationing in the Ozarks, even taking my senior trip to the Ozarks,
I think you will enjoy it all the more for that because you will see what one might think are outrageous set pieces, but as somebody who's been there, you're like, no, yeah, that's reasonable. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
The other thing that I've been watching was Twin Peaks because I do Damn Fine Podcast with Ron Richards, and it is really paying off. We're part 13 coming up, and it is the kind of thing where if you like David Lynch or you like Twin Peaks or both, and you stick with it, the pieces are definitely paying off, and I'm really having a good time with it.
I also am a religious watcher of that show. I adore it. It is my favorite show this year. And that being said, don't even try it if you haven't watched the original Twin Peaks, and then even somewhat recently, and you haven't watched Firewalk with me. And I would even say you're not going to enjoy it as much if you haven't watched The Missing Pieces or read The Secret History of Twin Peaks.
Secret History, yeah.
I mean, it ties so deeply into that mythology. I don't understand how anyone could watch it who hasn't recently watched all that other stuff.
We had Bria Grant on our podcast yesterday, and she made the argument that if you're a Lynch fan, or even someone who just likes that kind of experimental take, you probably could enjoy this. And I'm still on the fence whether I agree with her or not, but I see her point. But that's a small niche, because if you want to get all the references, you have to do everything Chris just said.
Yeah, it's interesting
it's
that
deep.
Tonally, it's starting from Firewalk with me, and it's slowly moving towards the original television show. Episode 11 felt like an episode of the original show. It had that great mix of dark to weird to very funny and quirky characters. And you're starting to see, I think a lot of people, fans have gotten irritated about the voyage of Dale Cooper in there, who is definitely not, the damn good coffee Cooper from the original show. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't watched it, but he's in a different state of mind, and people are starting to get annoyed by it. But I think the show is, it's about that journey, about him becoming that guy again, and it's about the whole show becoming the original show again. And I think it's fascinating to watch it play out. Plus, David Lynch loves funny Easter eggs, and it's just filled with like hysterical ones.
Oh yeah. No, and I'm sure I've missed most of them, and I've caught a bunch. It's just chock full of them. Anything else you've been watching, Chris, that you want to talk about?
There's a couple shows I really like. I would like to say the new version of The Mist I think is really good. I was a little skeptical because I think it's on TNT, which I'm like, okay, well, let's see how this goes. But it's an interesting new take on the material. It's definitely very different from both the story and the movie version they made of it. But I'm super enjoying it so far. Also, Sci-Fi Channel has two shows that I both wholeheartedly recommend. Admittedly, they're both a little campy, a little silly, but they're very well done. And one is Dark Matter for people who love things like, it's sort of like Stargate meets Firefly. It's got the darker characters who in the beginning, they wake up on a ship and they don't know who they are, but then they find out they're all basically supervillains in space, like the worst of the worst.
Oh, wow.
But they don't want to be those people, but it looks like they're not going to get their memories back. So they're dealing with a giant multifaceted corporate universe. And anyway, it's really good and lots of twists and turns. And then Winona Earp, which is basically Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Justified. And it's a lot of fun.
Right on.
Yeah, those are the big ones I'd probably say that y'all haven't already talked about. But once again, watch Twin Peaks.
Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
So I talked about this show last year when it premiered on Netflix, and I feel like season 2 is such a different thing that it's worth bringing up again. It is season 2 of Last Chance U. Y'all remember I was talking about Last Chance U last year? It's a documentary kind of in the vein of HBO's Hard Knocks, I believe, where you follow a football team over a season, and you get week by week by the ball games. But in season 2, it's interesting because it's the same school. It's a lot of the same staff. It's a lot of new players because it's only a 2-year school. But it's in a world where the first season has come out. I mean, it's real life. So they know, especially the head coach Buddy, knows how he was portrayed in that first season and how he came across. And spoiler alert, not great. And so you see. You are seeing a follow-up to that original season as a self-aware continuation, right? They're changing themselves because they know that they're on camera, but when that how that affects the results of the game, it changes up attitudes and stuff, and you see a lot of different conclusions with all the players. You get new players and all of their stories, plus new stuff with the staff who are just seem like really great people. So I think it's really cool. If you didn't even see season 1, I think having a season 2 like this is a really fascinating offer. And you don't have to like football. I know how football works, but I don't go out and watch football.
I think that's one of the most astonishing aspects to your endorsement of this program is that I don't think of you as a football kind of guy. And I remember telling Tom, I was like, I'll never watch Friday Night Lights because I grew up in Friday Night Lights and I don't care for football. And Tom was like, that's exactly why you're going to love Friday Night Lights. And then, and sure enough, he was right. And it seems like it's very much the same situation on this one.
Yeah, you don't need to know football. I mean, it helps if you know what a first down is and all that stuff. But they tell you this. They tell you the story of the games very quickly and right to the point. So it doesn't feel like this thing that's always at the end of the episodes is like, because they have all the beats right for you. And I'm really excited to see what they do next year because the rumor mill is that they're going to a new school. And that will just be another layer of self-awareness.
Called
like,
Second to Last Chance You.
But it's like, then we will be watching a school that knows what they look like in a documentary and what it looks like when you try to know what you like on the documentary. And man, it's great. That's Last Chance You on Netflix. There are 8 new episodes on it's an original, so it should be
I just
in all
can't
markets.
watch shows about sports or politics unless Aaron Sorkin is writing them. That's my cutoff point.
I can't watch them when he is.
What?
Sorry.
Dude, you're hating on the Sorkin?
Dude, I ain't got time for that many monologues in my life.
Worst period, generation period, ever period.
Look, folks, if you got something we should be on the lookout for, email cordkillers@gmail.com. And real quickly, wanted to tell you thank you to all of you who have reviewed Pilot X. Audible says it's one of the best reviewed audiobooks that they've had, especially from a new author. And it's got great stars on Amazon. And that's all because you folks went out there and read it and enjoyed it and said so on the internet. So huge thanks for that. If you haven't checked it out, it's a science fiction story about a time traveler called Pilot X. And he has to save the universe. And it's a really tough decision. And it's a lot of fun, according to people who have read it and who reviewed it on Amazon and Audible. So you can check it out there or at TomMerrittBooks.com, Pilot X.
Congratulations, man. That's fantastic.
Thanks, man.
So you wrote that?
Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
4.5 stars, though, man. Come on. What's
With
up?
4 of my fingers.
Not 5 stars?
Okay, whoa.
Somebody out there was like, I don't know what's going on.
Get out there and put the 4 of those 5-star reviews on there so Chris Cox can quiet down. All right, let's get on to the front lines.
Front lines.
Discovery Communications announced it plans to acquire Scripps Networks Interactive. Discovery obviously does the Discovery Network shows, and Scripps operates HGTV, Food Network, Cooking Channel. Combination will give the combined company more leverage when seeking distribution deals, not just with traditional cable companies, but also with those online services we were talking about earlier.
Man, what a weird full disclosure. Of course, Scam School is owned by Discovery. I'm so curious to see what that means in terms of boots on the ground changes. Like as far as like, is it going to be easier to get all of the material? Like, well, I don't know. I wonder. That's Brian's take.
Can't wait for Home and Scam School television with food.
Home and Scam television.
We can get it on Roku now, though, right?
Yeah, sure, probably. Meanwhile, HBO said Monday that attackers had stolen data, including upcoming programming. Entertainment Weekly reports the theft includes a script for an upcoming episode of Game of Thrones.
What kind of asshole with that kind of power hacks HBO to learn about Game of Thrones stuff ahead of time?
I mean, are you kidding me? It's like
It's not like it's the most popular television show.
Yeah,
no,
right?
but that's what I'm saying. You're like, why would you want to spoil it before you see it? I never get that.
Because it's a
And
big target.
Also,
Even if you don't like the show, it's a target.
with great power also comes great responsibility.
No,
think of all the
no.
amazing people you could hack and get awesome stuff from and be doing the world a service. But no, you're going to get an early Game of Thrones
No,
script.
but that's just it. Is Game of Thrones is the perfect target because you're not going to go to jail for treason by grabbing Game of Thrones.
Well, you might still
You're
go
just
to
going to
jail.
get sued out of oblivion. Yeah.
I just want to know if they paid the iron price for that script.
They paid the Bitcoin price.
Do you remember
Yeah.
when HBO was like, when they were told that was the most most pirated show of all
sure.
time.
No, they love
And they
that.
just shrugged and went, it doesn't matter. We
Well,
don't even care.
But keep in mind that was an artifact of them refusing to make it available digitally.
Right.
You could only get it if you had traditional cable television.
Yep, that's true.
Here's the thing. There are so many ways to get HBO. HBO doesn't even seem to care that much when people share passwords. I feel like I don't care. I don't want to see next week's episode script. I want to see next week's episode. I'll just wait till it comes out.
Yeah. HBO is so easy to get now. If you just think about it hard enough and wish, you'll see it. You know, it just appears in your brain.
Variety reports Amazon will act as its own distributor for Woody Allen's movie Wonder Wheel, set for release in December. This will give Amazon control over the marketing, the screenings, the theater rollout schedule. Amazon previously, and even with some of their other movies that are yet to come out, work with indie studios like Lionsgate for distribution.
I mean, this is happening more and more with the classic but smaller indie filmmakers, which Woody Allen is. His movies don't make a ton of money, but they're profitable because they're cheap to make. But less and less, the actual theatrical studios are unwilling to get deeply involved with these sort of films. Lynch himself, David Lynch, talked about this just recently. Like, well, I'm just happy doing TV because I can actually do what I want to. I can't make the movies I want anymore. Allen just recently did a deal with Amazon for his TV show, although he himself was like, don't watch my TV show. It's terrible. But I'm not surprised to see he would continue on with the deal as a distribution deal, because honestly, I'm not sure there's a place in theaters for Woody Allen films anymore.
That's amazing.
And a way different approach for Amazon from the other side of it than Netflix. Netflix is out there trying to browbeat theaters into allowing them day and date release. Amazon's like, we'll play ball. We'll do your 90-day window. We want to be a movie distributor. We want to be a movie studio. I mean, Amazon wants to be right there next to Sony and Warner and everybody else.
Yeah, and for example, I mean, watching The Big Sick, I mean, that is top quality entertainment, and it is a little bit jarring to see the Amazon logo before it, but I think they're earning their spot at the table for sure. Meanwhile, Nielsen has begun adding YouTube and Hulu to its C3 and C7 numbers, which have previously been used to include streaming views from traditional broadcast networks. Does this make YouTube and Hulu, are they made men now finally?
I don't know. This is the 3-day and 7-day delay numbers, right? I can't wait to see the YouTube ratings. Like, you know, we know their stream numbers, we know their subscriber numbers, but how do they stack up actually next to Scandal?
Oh my God, that's a weird thing that I had never even considered.
Yeah,
because
Good Mythical Morning, Scandal, and then Handmaid's Tale on the ratings list.
That's phenomenal.
And the Modern Rogue, of course.
Yeah, I was about to say there's another property I could think to inject in there. That would be great.
But how does that affect in the bigger picture? I mean, these streaming services, Hulu doesn't have commercials, right?
Right.
Like
They do.
Well, I guess they
have
do
commercials
in the pay version.
on the lower tier, just not the more expensive.
I guess
tier.
that's true. I guess that would make sense why Netflix isn't included in
Well,
this,
but,
because they absolutely
to be
don't
honest,
have commercials.
yeah, correct. Like Netflix, it doesn't make sense, but YouTube, it absolutely makes sense. Not only because they do advertisers beforehand, but more importantly, for the content creators to know if you could tell an advertiser that wants to do a sponsored integration. You know, if Symantec oil is that a thing? Was Symantec
Antivirus oil?
Yeah, the antivirus oil is
Ever
like
since that Exxon Symantec merger, it's been a real confusing product line.
So when they call up, they're like, "Hey man, we want you to use our oil on your next Modern Rogue episode." It will really matter for us to say, "Yeah, well, we're bigger than The Handmaid's Tale, so
I just
we would like to
fueled
get
up
paid."
at McAfee gas station on the way here. So.
It does not work with the firewall. Do not use the firewall with it.
I hate though when your monthly subscription runs out and your gas stops burning. That's the worst part. PlayStation Vue has added a sports package for $10 a month. It includes the NFL Red Zone, MLB Strike Zone, ESPN Classic, and 11 other channels. A lot of those league-oriented channels, especially for college sports. So they've had sports like ESPN in their various tiers before, but now they're giving the sports fan a package like, look, maybe you don't want to have that premium elite tier with all the movie channels and all those other specialty channels. Here's your sports pack.
I think this is going to be huge, actually. PlayStation is required ownership for your average college student these days, I think.
Yeah.
And I would say that probably college-age kids are a massive percentage of addicted sports watchers. Like, we watch a lot of sports. I think that this is going to become de rigueur for these people of the new service to get. And maybe yet that bigger of a Cut that cord reason.
I'll tell you what, man. PlayStation View seems to be killing it so hard that it makes me wonder why they still have the word PlayStation in there. Like they should just drop the word PlayStation and just call it the service View. Because I've never watched a program like my kids watch it on the PlayStation, but I watch all mine on the desktops or on the phone or whatever.
Oh, by the way, a lot of this Nielsen information has to do with the YouTube TV service, where they provide traditional channels.
Got it.
As well as Hulu's live TV service. So I'm still unclear whether we're going to get to see those on-demand
I would like it.
institutions.
I would like it. Meanwhile, the Dublin Institute of Technology student Ronan Byrne has started a project called SickFlix. It's basically an Arduino hooked up to a stationary bike that only lets you watch Netflix if you're pedaling hard enough. You set the levels. It also will work with other streaming services like Hulu. Man, this is a great idea. I personally do this already. I don't know that I need a gizmo hooked up to a thing to restrict me or force me to do it. I don't seem to have too much trouble keeping to like a certain pace while I'm going.
By the way,
Aren't we
SickFlix
special?
sounds like it's, like awesome flicks, man.
Lucky
Sick
for you,
flicks.
this guy who's not an ectomorph is
Okay.
like, it's easy for me to stay in good shape. I don't have to do. I'm like, man, I love exercising. It's just
You're
great.
like, be gone, daywalker! Ah!
Exactly. I'm like, man, I need a team of like people in dominatrix outfits and whips to make me exercise. So
Fair enough.
I think that's a good idea. I'm all for
No,
it.
I think it's kind of cool. I wonder how easy it will be for people to hook up, because that's essential, like you just mentioned, in exercise. But I could see Eileen use this. She watches Netflix all the time when she's exercising on our machine over there in the garage. So this could be the kind of thing that would be cool to have. Shall we get to some dispatches from the front?
Well, if you insist.
I do.
As long as they're fresh from the front lines.
None of those stale,
stale
day-old
fronts,
dispatches. Yes.
I want to read this first one because I want to replay my impressions of it until I got to the end when I found out who had written. Could The Dark Tower at 95 minutes be a good movie? Sure. It just won't be The Dark Tower. So don't call it The Dark Tower. Just toss me a colon, for God's sake. The Dark Tower, Face of My Father. Or call it The Dark Tower and the Sorcerer's Stone. Whatever. Anything that admits you're not trying to do the whole series. At which point I think, wow, this guy's just one of those angry people on the internet. Like, The Dark Tower encompasses more than just those 8 books. It can encompass a movie.
Well,
anyway, the email continues. Though I'm not sure what portion of the story they can tell well in 95 minutes. That's barely longer than each Game of Thrones episode is supposed to be next season. Of course, Game of Thrones is an epic adventure that you could hardly expect to be told in shorter form, whereas Dark Tower is, anyhow, sub $20 million opening weekend, but I'm not promising $10 of it won't be mine. And I'm thinking, wow, who is this guy who's just got nothing negative to say? He's not looking at the pile. Oh, it's Movie League Mike Range. I love Mike Range. Movie League Mike's hilarious.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I understand his frustrations. I think a lot of people are going through the 7 phases of Dark Tower moviness. It's like, the anticipation, the giddy excitement, the crushing frustration as everything you thought you knew about it goes out the window. Here's where I'm at right now. 95 minutes, be just fine. As long as it doesn't have to be the actual story of the Dark Tower.
It's a sequel.
It just has to be a tribute to the things that I love most in the Dark Tower.
They said from the get-go this takes place after the original series of books.
That is correct. That is correct. But you're right. That does give them a big, wide open space to work with. But to be honest, all I want this to do is to be good enough. I want to see Equilibrium style gun kata, just gun fu the entire time.
Yeah.
And I want people to love it for its action chops and be utterly intrigued about the backstory happening in the background to where they end up reading the book or the movie gets or TV show gets greenlit or whatever.
Here's my impression of the last trailer. Okay, Idris Elba shoots. Idris Elba reloads in a different way that's cool than the last time we see him do it. and Matthew McConaughey screams. Yeah. That's the whole trailer.
That's fine.
It's
That's all I
those
need.
3 scenes over and over again, which I suspect is the movie. Let's not forget, this is weird because I thought they had given up on it, but they've confirmed that, including Idris Elba, they're doing after this a television show that will continue the space, that will go on to the space until the next Dark Tower movie. And as I said, and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who's reading the books, but this is both a remake and a sequel at the same time. So things can happen and should happen differently.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look, I'm irrationally optimistic about this.
You were the one who forced me to read the first Dark Tower.
Oh, that's right. I gave you those CDs for the audio.
You were like, oh, you're going to totally listen to this.
And that's the thing. This isn't The Gunslinger, right? Now, I know that they're all Dark Tower, The Gunslinger now, but it's not one of the stories. I think he makes a good point. The more I think about it, that, well, this isn't The Dark Tower, the entire scope of the series, but I think they have to name the first one The Dark Tower. Then if it succeeds and they make the next one, then they can call it Dark Tower Face of My Father or whatever. Call it something different to distinguish it. But this first one, they just need that simple, like, this is the Dark Tower universe. We don't want to tell you anything else because that would be a spoiler, even for people who've read the book.
And to be honest, I think that's the right way to do it. Do not begin the Dark Tower with like, well, to understand the Dark Tower, you have to understand it's not really about the Dark Tower. It's like, no, make it dead simple, make it super approachable, show badass gunfighting and weird sci-fi mashup with mutants and all that crap. That's all I want.
I don't want 80 minutes of previously on the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
And then 10 minutes of new movie, you know? At the same time, you know, this kind of looks like The Last Action Hero to me. Still, I'm still going like, really? Because it's a little
I'll
boy.
Still go to bat for Last Action Hero.
The Dark Tower, cool reloads and screams.
Yes, exactly. Somebody say when he said toss me a colon, I laughed like a third grader.
So
See,
Roy writes us saying on Cordkillers episode 180, Brian mentioned that Wonder Woman had overtaken Guardians of the Galaxy 2 at the box office. Consider that the current top 2 movies of the year are Wonder Woman and live action Beauty and the Beast, with The Last Jedi likely to join them. If that comes to pass, then the top 3 movies of 2017 will feature female leads. I enjoy watching Hollywood suits get reality checked. Kudos to the fans for serving that check. Women can star in and open blockbusters.
Bizarre that we even have to have that, say things like that. We're like, why does it bother you so much, or anyone, that women do star in them? Clearly they're financially lucrative, you know?
Well, and I totally get where Roy's going with this, and it is cool to see, you know, a number of female leads out there in a world where in the past we wouldn't have that many movies. I think the suits are not getting reality checked. I think the suits are behind that happening. Like, they're writing the checks that make that happen.
Yeah, kind of boys clubby still on that level of Hollywood, to be sure.
Well, and we may be, you know, one would hope that we're at a place where the gender of the lead doesn't matter as much as the talent and the story being told, but we certainly are not at a place where it's unremarkable to notice those things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think it's fine for us to notice.
That's all I was pointing out, that
Yeah.
it just seems absurd. If you were an alien watching us, you'd be like, seriously? Why do you give a crap?
Yeah.
Oh, well. This is where we are. We're dealing with it the best we can.
Chris Cox, a pleasure to chat with you today. Let folks know where they can find more, what you got going on.
You can find me at oneofus.net, where we do all sorts of podcasts and videocasts. We cover all the new theatrical films when they come out, a lot of the TV shows. We also have a Twin Peaks podcast that we do. We just do every 2 episodes instead of every 1. Lots
we're not
of stuff
masochists.
on there. And actually,
Yeah,
lately,
exactly.
I've been on RageSelect.com a lot, too, appearing on there.
Oh, yeah.
Which is live play, which is fun. I don't actually play because I'm not that great, but I'm the peanut gallery for the guy who does.
Yeah, that's our own Jeff Schusler, who's now helping out editing with Scam School episodes.
Indeed he is.
We're all related.
Incestuous. is
Okay,
the
I didn't
term
want to
you're
say.
looking for.
You had to take it to Game of Thrones.
Come here,
territory.
Cersei. Come here.
All right.
All right.
I used to get beers at Waterloo Brew Pub from, probably from Chris at one point without even knowing.
That's one of the weird parts. Is I have no doubt that you probably got served by Chris.
And I was so drunk in those days, I could have had sex with Tom and not even know it. Now I'd be like,
quite possible.
he's looking at me
With
like,
either one
oh,
of us.
this is awkward. Oh, I wonder if he remembers that time in the beer closet.
Well, Chris and I are going to go compare notes, but we'll see you guys next week. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll see you then.
Don't forget, Strawman Brian waits you at cordkillers@gmail.com. Stab him. Just let him have it. Hey guys, Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cordkillers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
Unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
Let's go.
it's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.